Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Gittin Daf Lametet Amud Aleph 39a1. We just asked who is the Braita going like, where the Braita went and he said that if a person is going to be Magdish et Avdo Oseh ve'ochel, right? So then the Eved will do melacha. He could come and he could eat from the perot of the melacha. Shelo igdish ela damav, because he only came and he consecrated his money. So he says, Hamani, who is this? Rabbi Miri. It's Rabbi Meir. Damar en adam otzik devarav levatala. Because if you remember, there was a machloka between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim, right? Does a person come and waste his words? Meaning, does he say his words levatala or not? And therefore, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, right, which he says, en adam otzik devarav levatala, the fact that he came and he used the terminology hekdesh avdiye kadosh. So if we're going to go kibshutam, that it's the mamash guf shela eved and not the money, so then yatsa eved lecharut, and there's no hekdesh. So therefore, when he said hekdesh, it's levatala. So therefore, according to Rabbi Meir, when it says it's kilu, he said damav alai, right? So therefore, that the money of the eved goes to the hekdesh. But according to Chachamim, that they argue on Rabbi Meir, and they hold that a person is mutzi adam, right? Devarav levatala. So it's going to be something different, okay? That therefore you're going to say that really be'emet he didn't say the words demei avdi alai, and therefore he goes out lecherut. Why did he say right? Why did he say hekdesh? Levatala. Zayastam. He just stam upitpetet ze, right? Who amar ze. Okay, fine. Hachanami mistabra. This is also logical. Tiktani beseifa, but we learned in the seifa. V'chen hu sheikdish atzmo. The same halacha would apply in a ben chorim, that he came and he consecrated himself. Oseh ve'ochel. He could come and he could eat from the fruits of his labor, which means ma'aseh davar chulin, and he's allowed to benefit from them. Shelo igdish ala damav, which means if a person comes and makes himself into ekdesh, he only made his value, the money, into ekdesh, nothing else. So says the Gemara, again the same thing. If you're going to tell me it's shitat Rabbi Meir, so then it makes sense. Why? He says the kavanah is that the ekdesh has to be chal. Why does the hekdesh have to be chal? Because a person does not, if you said the words hekdesh, en adam motzi devarav levatala. Yesh dvarim levatala? En davar kazeh dvarim levatala. So therefore, if a person cannot come and speak for nothing, meaning when he talks, he means what he talks. So if he used the words hekdesh, it has to be hekdesh. How could that be? But the money is hekdesh. So it's like Rabbi Meir. It makes sense, right? But if you're going to tell,
so the old psychology, all the words you use
the words
to explain something
exactly, it's very, very important. But if you're going to tell me now, Rabbananhi, this is shitat.
No,
Rabbanan. Yeah, the beginning, the top, right? The fourth line, right? Fifth line, sorry. But if you're going to tell me now it's Rabbananhi, right? It's Rabbanan. So he says, Bishlema avdo lidmekai, ela ihu lidmekai. But he says, if you're going to tell me now it's dat chachamim was that they say that it was only kimashmauto pshuta. What is that? That the chalek desh bereisha is only because stam misha magdish davar shenu lo lekdushat aguf magdisho le'mecher. So when you come and you're going to sanctify something, kedushat aguf, it means that you want to sell it. So Bishlema Avdo, I understand the Eved, when the Eved itself is going to be Mukdash, it's Kedushat Damim. Because an Eved is for Kedushat Damim. But he himself, Lidmekai. Are you going to tell me it's for Kedushat Damim? Right? You can't sell yourself. So therefore, what are we talking about now? That according to Chachamim, in this case, it's not going to Chal Ekdesh at all. Right? Why? Because it's not going to be Kadosh Limacher. Right? So he comes and he says, right, even though, right, he comes and he says, right, even though, right, he comes and he says he cannot come and he cannot sell it, right? So he comes and he says, it comes out that those words are dvarim betelim. We already said that according to Chachamim, it could be dvarim betelim. So said, so the Gemara, lema ketanaim. Really, be'emet, we want to say that it's actually a machloket tanaim. What is a machloket tanaim? Hamagdish avdo en moalim bo. Right, what's a machloket exactly? The person is going to come and he's going to consecrate he's going to come and he's going to consecrate his servant. Is there a problem of mi'ilah or not mi'ilah? Remember, the mi'ilah means you're not allowed to benefit from kodesh. So, for example, if you have a korban an animal that you came and you consecrated to the Bet HaMikdash, you're not allowed to benefit from the animal. If you benefit from the animal, that's called Mi'ilah. So Mi'ilah, first of all, you did an Avirah, you have to bring the Korban Mi'ilah, plus you have to add a fifth. Okay? So it says, Amagdish et avdo en moalim bo. What does that mean? You're not going to be chayav Mi'ilah if you asked him for a favor. Imagine right now you come and you say about your slave, he's kadosh. Yeah? So what happens? I come and I ask the slave, by the way, bring me a cup of coffee. Yeah? So what do they come and they say? They come and they say, right? En moalim bo. Ma kavana en moalim bo. En moalim bo means there's no Mi'ilah. Right? There's no problem of Mi'ilah. That means even though you benefited from it, there's no problem. Rashbag Omer Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Mu'alim be'se'aro. What does that mean? You're going to be on the se'ar, right? Mishum Mi'ilah, if you're going to benefit from it, which means, right? Nene migufo, you're not going to be chayav Mi'ilah. But mise'aro, you are going to be chayav Mi'ilah. Obviously, the Gemara is going to explain what's the difference. What's the difference between his hair and his body? That if you benefit from the body, there's no problem with Mi'ilah. But if you benefit from his hair, there is Mi'ilah. What's going on? So says the Gemara, are we not arguing in this in itself? That Rashbag, which is the more Savar, Kadosh, that the Eved becomes holy, or more Savar and Tanakama holds, Lo Kadosh, he does not become holy. So why don't we just say, it's a Machloket Tanaim. Machloket Tanaim is, when you come and you're Magdish and Eved, does it become holy or doesn't it become holy? That's actually Machloket between Rashbag and Tanakama. So says the Gemara, are you going to tell me that something like this is going to be logical? Hai mualimbo ve'en mualimbo. Here the entire machloke between them was me'ilah or not me'ilah. Meaning, right, it's mashma according to everybody that the Eved is kadosh. The only machloke between them is, are you chayav me'ilah or not chayav me'ilah? Hai kadosh ve'eno kadosh mi'baile. If you wanted to tell me that it's a machloket tanaim, you should have told me that it's a machloket, whether he's kadosh or not kadosh. You didn't tell me that. It was mashma, he was kadosh according to everybody. So it's not a machloket tanaim. Only question is there mi'ilah or not? But that's it. Okay? So he says, Ela dichule alma, but rather according to everybody, he's going to be kadosh. So what is machloket then here between Tanakama and Rashbag? The more savar Tanakama holds, Avda kimekarka edame. That an Eved is like karka. Meaning, just like you're not chayav on mi'ilah on karka, so too you're not chayav mi'ilah on an Eved. One more time. I came and I consecrated a piece of land. You come and you lie down on a piece of land, or you benefited from it. Are you chayav mi'ilah? No. Why? There's no mi'ilah in karka. So the first Tana, which here is going to be Tanakama holds, that an Eved is like karka, which means even if the Eved is kadosh, because nobody's not talking about this kadosh, the Eved became kadosh. You came in your magdish, became kadosh. But you chayav mi'ilah. If you hold that an Eved is like karka, right, which means that just like your karka is your property, so too the Eved is your property, but the difference is that it's not a tangible property, meaning it's not like metaltalin. It's like karka. So therefore, what happens is there's not going to be mi'ilah. But Rashbag holds, right? Kemetalta ledami. What does it mean, kemetalta ledami? That it's metaltalin. Anything which is tangible, right, does have a din of mi'ilah. There's a machloket between, right? The machloket here is, one more time. What are we trying to say? We're trying to say really bad, it's kadosh, right? So if you come and you consecrate your Eved according to everybody, until now that we said, it is kadosh. Not like we said before. We said before it was a machloket between Rabbi and Chachamim. And then we want to say, no, it's also machloket of the Tanaim. We said, no, according to everybody, it is kadosh. You came and you consecrated it, it consecrated your Eved. Your Eved is kadosh. Machloket between them is to do with mi'ilah. What does it mean, mi'ilah? Right? Mi'ilah means, right? Mi'ilah means is that, are you allowed to benefit from it? And if you do benefit, are you chayav korban mi'ilah and to pay back a fifth, an additional fifth?
If it's not mi'ilah, you can benefit from it.
If no, it didn't say that either, but you're not chayav mi'ilah. Meaning that if you did benefit, right, it didn't say lechatchila you're allowed to benefit from it. But if you did benefit from it, are you obligated to bring a korban? Are you obligated to pay? If you say no, no. If you say yes, yes. It doesn't say that you're allowed lechatchila to benefit from it. Okay? So says the Gemara, Yihachiv so, if right now you're coming and you're making a differentiation between the hair, why not the body? One more time, what did we say before? We said before, right, we came and we said that if it's going to be b'se'aro, right? Rashbag Omer, mu'alim b'se'aro. You're going to be chayav milah on the se'ar, but not on the guf. Why? What's the difference between the hair and the body? Yeah, what's the difference in the hair and the body? So he says, adamipalge b'se'aro, lipalge gam ke megufo. Right? So he comes and he says, Ela barather, right? He comes and he says, Dechule alma avde kemekarka edam. According to everybody, an eved is like karka, right? Because many times, eved was dealing like karka, as it says, V'nachaltem otam livnechem acharechem lareshet achuzah. So therefore, there was a kesh, the eved to stay achuzah. Meaning, remember, what did we learn yesterday? Le'olam ba'em ta'avodu, you have a mitzvah taseh, to always make sure that they work and they go down in Yerusha, meaning an Eved goes down in inheritance. So therefore, just like a piece of land goes down in inheritance, so too, right, the Eved goes down in the inheritance. And you're not supposed to come and you're not supposed to free, right, the Eved. You transgress a positive commandment. And that was one of the three things that we learned yesterday. That Baalei Batim, they lose all their money for. Why? They come and they free an Eved Kenani, and they're not supposed to. Yeah? So he comes and he says, so according to everybody, really, Bemet, Avda Kemekarka Edam, that an Eved is like Karka. But over here, Bese'aro Haomed Ligazez Kamipalge. We're talking about somebody's hair, that is going to be cut. What does that mean? If right now we're talking about just somebody's hair, that's no. But what happens right now if you already know the person has long hair? Yeah, and therefore by having long hair, right, what happens is it's going to be cut. So do you say, right, do you say, right, that se'ar which is not omed ligazez, according to everybody, you're not going to be chayav milah because it's like gufa eved. But if it's going to be already a long hair that you already know he's going to cut it, so on that is there going to be milah. More savar Rashbag holds kegazuz dami, right? But it's just like the famous general rule: kol haomed gikatzetz kekatzutz dami, kol haomed ligazez kegazuz dami, kol haomed, right? All these things, kol haomed lisaref kesaruf dami, like all the concepts that if it's already standing for this, right? It's already there. It's already given. Or kol haomed ligvot kegavui dami, right? All these cases, you understand? So in all these things, more the Rashbag holds that it's already going to be cut, and therefore it's going to be milah. Why? If it's already cut, it's not mechubar lekarka anymore. One more time, right? One more time. The ground, there's no milah. We said there was a hekesh, the eved, to the ground. So just like the ground, there's no milah in the eved, right? Because the eved is like the ground. So therefore we come and we say now, but 1 second, the hair is like the gufa eved. So it's also no milah. But if the hair is too long, for example, let's say I'm waiting right before Shiva Asar B'Tammuz to come and get a haircut instead of getting 3 haircuts, right? So the hair is very, very long, and it's already cut because you're just waiting for it to cut down with the next day or two. It's very long hair. We're not talking about short hair, right? That is the goof of the Eved. So therefore, if you're going to tell me the general rule, which means anything which is going to be cut is already considered cut from now, so it's not mechubar lekarka. And if it's not going to be mechubar lekarka, so now there is milah. So that's why we mentioned that there is going to be milah by hair. By which hair are we talking about? Haomed ligazez.
It looks like in Ta'anit.
The more Savan Rashbag holds kegazuz dami, so that's what we just mentioned, that since it's going to be considered cut off, so therefore it's like metaltalin and there is milah, and that's why only by the hair is there a problem of milah. More Savan and Tanakama holds love kegazuz dami. That means even though you're meant to cut off the hair, it's not considered right kegazuz dami, and therefore it's like mechubar lekarka, because we already mentioned the eved is like karka, and therefore anything which is mechubar lekarka is karka. There's no problem of milah. So says the Gemara, Lema hani tanai kani tanai. Why don't we just say that this tanaim, right, or this like this tanaim, which means the Tanakam and Rashbag are arguing in the same machloket of other tanaim in the Mishnah. The tanaim was learned on the Mishnah and Shavuot. Rabbi Meir, we're by the little dalid in the Gemara. Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir says, Yesh dvarim shehem kekarka, ve'enan karka. Right? There are certain things which are like ground, right? Which means it's mechubar lekarka, right? Ve'enan karka, even though it's not the din of karka, and you're going to be chayav on them shivua, right? That means, which means at certain times, right? The mina Torah, somebody is going to be obligated to swear on his ta'ana in order that his claim is going to be accepted. So he has to swear. One of the times that he has to do that is modeh b'mitzat, meaning you recognize a portion of it. If I come in and say you owe me $200, he says, no, I only owe you 100. What do you have to do? Modeh b'mitzat, you have to swear, right? You have to actually swear, right? That's the way it is. However, though, right, kasher mitzdainim odot karka, when you're going to talk about karka, you do not have to make a shavua on karka. Ve'en chachamim modim, but the chachamim, they do not admit to him. What are we talking about? Keitza. Eser gefanim te'unot masati lecha. Imagine I come and I say, listen, I gave you 10 clusters of grapes, right? Ve'hala omer, another guy says, there was only 5. So Rabbi Meir says, you're going to be chayav, right? Shavua. Why? Right? So he comes and he says, you have to swear. Chachamim omrim, right? Chachamim say, kol mechubar lakarka, hareu kekarka. Anything which is mechubar lakarka, it's like karka. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina says, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, anavim omdot libatzeri kabenayhum. The difference between them is, what happens if you have grapes which are waiting to be harvested? Remember that in Hebrew, right, each one of the word to harvest is used different. So kotzer, right, is going to be by wheat, kotzer, liktzor, right, to reap, right? But by grapes, it's libatzer. By zetim is limsok, right? So therefore, we're talking about here to reap the grapes. I mean, these grapes are already ready, and therefore they're waiting to be taken down. So therefore, Rabbi Meir savar kibsurot damya. Rabbi Meir holds that since they are waiting to be taken down, so they're already considered taken down, and therefore what happens is that it's not considered karka, but rather metaltlin. It's not considered the ground anymore. It's considered movable objects. Why? Because it's going to be cut down. But Rabbanan Savra and the rabbis hold up kibsurot damyan, but they're not considered bitsuro. They're not considered, right, already cut down. So you see from here that this machloket was like the previous machloket, Tanakh and Rashbag, to do with the hair. Beforehand, we went and we differentiated between hair and the rest of the body. And we said that if the hair was long enough that you're going to cut it, it's considered cut according to Rashbag, and therefore it's not considered the body. And if it's not considered the body, it's like metaltalin, not karka. It's like movable objects, tangible objects, and not land. And therefore there is a problem of milah. But according to the Tanakh, he doesn't hold it. What do we say? It's the same machloket between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. So says the Gemara, afilu teimar Rabbi Meir. Even if you're going to tell me that we're going in the shita of Rabbi Meir, ad kalokama Rabbi Meir hata mina ba'anavim. It's only by anavim. The kama the kaimim michashchishe. Anavim, the longer that they stay on the ground, they become worse, and therefore worse. Yeah. And therefore he comes and he says it doesn't help. Meaning, too much nurturing is also not good.
Deteriorate.
Exactly, they deteriorate. They don't appreciate, they deteriorate. Aval hachaba by us, so we're talking about the hair. Kama dekaish tabuch mishabach. As long as the hair is in the body, it continues appreciating. It doesn't go down. Meaning, it's not like that hair becomes worse the longer that it is. Hair doesn't become worse the longer that it is. So even according to Rabbi Meir, that by grapes, he said it's considered cut down. Right? That means because it's fitting to be cut down, so it's considered cut down. It's only by grapes, because grapes, the more that it stays on the tree, the more that it stays in the clusters of it, the worse that it gets, right? But by hair, you don't say that. So if even according to Rabbi Meir, don't compare both cases, right? Okay. Isalik, Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, right? When Rabbi Chia bar Yosef came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, Amar lehai shmate de Rav. He went and he said the shmua of Rav, that if somebody's going to be mafkir avdo, right, he's yotze lecherut. So if you come and you make your eved into hefker, ownerless, he goes out free. So he said this in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Come to Rabbi Yochanan. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan was in Eretz Yisrael, okay, and Rav was in Bavel. Rav and Shmuel were in Bavel, right, and Rabbi Yochanan was in Eretz Yisrael. He was Rosh Shiva in Eretz Yisrael. And Rav was in Surah in Bavel. Okay? So Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Amar Rav Hachi. Does Rav actually say that? Meaning Rav said that if you come and you make your Eved ownerless, he goes out free. So 1 second. Did Rabbi Yochanan himself not say like that? Ve'amar Ula said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, name Rabbi Yochanan, Hamafkir Avdo, Yatsa Lecheru v'tzarich get shichrut. Meaning, what is Rabbi Yochanan asking? He himself holds the exact same thing. He himself said, and it's quoted by Ula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that if you're going to be mafkir your Eved, he goes up free, and he needs an emancipation letter. He needs a get shichrut. So answers the Gemara, Haki Kamali, this is what he meant. Amar Rav Kavati, does Rav say like me? Meaning, sometimes you come and you ask a question, right? You say, what? Does Mordechai actually say that? So we thought at the beginning when he said that was, can he say such a thing? Like it doesn't make sense. That wasn't the kavanah. The kavanah was, right? Does the doctor hold like me? Right? Not that, does Rav actually say that? Because I also say the same thing. But the question was, does he hold like me? Understand? That was the question. V'ika de'amri, other people say, Lo simu kameh. They didn't finish, which means, right, they didn't say that he needs a get shichrut. They just said, Hamafkir avdo yatsa lecherut. That's it. They didn't finish. Meaning they just said, if you're going to make your slave ownerless, he goes out free. But they didn't speak about the get shichrut, the emancipation letter. So therefore, since he didn't finish speaking about it, Elmaleh, he says, V'lo amar Rav tzarich get shichrut. Meaning, okay, I also hold that he goes out free. But Rav didn't speak about that he also requires a letter of freedom, a letter of emancipation that he becomes free. That was the question. Rabbi Yochanan l'tamen, Rabbi Yochanan goes according to his reasoning. Rabbi Yochanan, it says, name Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan also holds the same thing like Rav. But he just says, you need to get shichrut. Okay? Fine. Next. Gufa amarula Rabbi Yochanan. Remember that whenever the Gemara says Gufa, we're taking the last brighter that we just brought down, and now we're trying to analyze it. So Gufa Rabbi Yochanan says Ula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Mafkir avdo yatzalech shichrut, right? Something that's going to make his Eved ownerless. He goes out free and he needs a get shichrut. Eight be Rabbi Abba leula. Rabbi Abba comes and he asks Ula, ger shemet. A ger that dies. Now, why do we bring down the ger? Because a ger does not have family. Unless after he becomes a ger, he starts getting married and having children, he does not have family. So if he has no yorshim, right? And then everything becomes hefker. So you have a person, he converted, now he's considered somebody that just was born again, right? When you wake up also in the morning, by the way, you're born again, right? You become a new creature, a new creation, right? So what happens? So he says, Ubizbezu Yisrael, right? Nechasav. So the Israel comes, takes his properties, right? Vayu Bahen Avadim, and there were slaves. Ben Gedolim, Ben Ktanim. Doesn't matter whether they're minors or people that are above bar mitzvah. Chanu atzmam b'nei chorim. Right? No, these are slaves. So the slaves, they acquire themselves. Right? That means they acquire themselves to become a hefker, and nobody else can take them as a slave. So one more time. You have an Eved. This Eved has properties, but he has no family, not an Eved, a Ger. Right? A Ger. And he's got properties, he's got Avadim, he's got everything, but there's no family members. Why? He's a Ger, he just converted. So what happens? He's got no family. Yeah, no, not considered.
No will, apparently.
Right. Yes, obviously. Right. So what happens? He passes away, right? And now what do you do? So everything becomes hefker, everything becomes onerous. The slaves, they acquire themselves free. Meaning I cannot come and run in and say, you're mine. No, because since he became hefker, he acquires himself now. I cannot come and acquire the evidence and say, now you're my evidence.
He doesn't need a
right? 1 second. Abba Shaul Omer, Abba Shaul comes and he says, right? Gedolim kanu atzmam b'nei chorim. The avadim which are above bar mitzvah, they acquire themselves free. But the ktanim, the minors, kol hamachzik b'hen zacha b'hen. Anybody that grabs them, they acquire them like an Eved Kanani. So now we didn't finish the question.
You just have to be there first.
Well, you have to grab him first and do a kinyan on him, obviously, right? So the Gemara asks, 1 second, who made them a get shichrur? One more time. If you just say that they became ownerless, We said a minute ago that ownerless is not enough. They still need to get shichrut.
Even for the adults.
Right? So therefore, the question is, who came and gave them this get shichrut? Yeah? So he comes and he says, right? Who gave them this get shichrut? So he comes and he says, Mi katav get shichrut le'elu. So Amar says, Ula, dami haimi de rabbanan, kedelo gamre in sheshmata. This is compared, right? This is that he never learned a sugya in the world. Meaning sometimes it happens that people ask questions and you come and you say, this guy didn't learn a thing in his lifetime. Yeah? That's what Ula said. And Rabbi Yochanan also was modeh, that they don't need to get shichrut. Meaning, what's the question? What are you making ha'ikesh? You're not supposed to make ha'ikesh when you don't make ha'ikesh. So what are you doing? You're comparing both cases.
Cash.
But tamamai, what's the reasoning? Amar Rav Nachman says of Nachman, Kasavar Ula holds, Avdo de ger ki ishto. An eved of a ger is like his wife. Ma ishto mishtalcha bilo get. Just like the wife of a person is sent without a get, right? Meaning when a person passes away, he doesn't have to give a get to his wife. His death is the get. So too, avadav mishtalchim bilo get. A person, when he passes away, his slaves are freed without a get. Why? Because the shichrut of edim is learned from a gezerah shava, from eshet ish, from la, which is written by both of them. It says v'katav la sefer keritut, and it says by an eved o chuvsha lo nitan la. Since it says la, we make ma? No, chuvsha. Yeah. Right? So he comes and he says, since we learn from a gezerah shava eved to a woman, just like a woman is freed without a get, so to a slave is freed without a get. So for even Rabbi Yochanan agrees with that. So what are you asking? You're asking me a question from an eved, right? From the to do with a get. What are you talking about? Right? Well, what's the question? So says the Gemara, if so afilu yisanami. Why did you say dafka right now? If you're going to learn an eved from an isha, so also even in Israel, a Jew, why did you bring down dafka ger that has no family? Even a Jew. Sometimes it happens that you have a Jew that he has no family, for whatever case was. Whether it's going to be that he was an only child and his parents were only children, or the Shoah, the Holocaust. But I mean, brother, why did you have to get the dafka the ger, right? It's the same halacha. So he comes and says the Gemara, Amar Kra, the pasuk says by Avadim, v'itznachaltem otam livnechem acharechem lareshet achuzah. So it's mefurash in the pasuk that when the Adon, they're going to Yorshim him, Yorshim et ha'eved, and he doesn't go out b'mitat Adon. So in such a case, right, the Torah did not make the Eved like a woman. Only when there's nobody to inherit does it make it like a woman. Meaning like this. If right now the person dies, so if you just compare the Eved to the woman, you say, listen, who was his owner? This guy that just died. If this guy just died, just like now his wife, does she need a get? She doesn't need a get. So to the Eved doesn't need a get. He should go out for it. Says the Torah, no. Why? It says in the Torah, they come down as an achala. They come down as an inheritance. So since they come down in inheritance, the death, the Torah, the Bible says, yeah? So therefore the Torah is obligated that it's not like the woman in 100%. It goes down in inheritance. The person's wife does not go down in inheritance, right? For example, let's say it was not the children's mother's, right? Let's say it wasn't the children's mother, right? She doesn't go down in inheritance. Then now the children get this woman, and they're able to, the opposite, it's still a eshetav, right? It's still prohibited, but it's a sulam. But the concept though is that the slaves are inheritances. So he doesn't go out for free automatically. But if there was no yorshim, no inheritors, then he's like the woman, which means that he completely goes out free. So as the Gemara, so hamafkir avdo umetnami. If you freed your slave, right? A person freed his slave. And then, right, what happened is that he died. Also, he should be free. Why? Because it's the eved of a get that has no Yerushin, right? That he's going to be. So, alama, why is it, Amar Ameimar, that Ameimar said, Hamafkir of Dovumet, Oto Eved and lo takana. If somebody comes and he freezes, he makes him hefker, and then he dies, the Eved has no takana because there's nothing to fix him. There's no remedy. Why? Because who's going to give him a get shechur? Right? So now, 1 second. If you just told me now that if he's hefker, and therefore nobody's going to inherit him, that with the death of the master automatically goes free, just like the woman. Over here, why did you say no takana? There's no remedy. If he was freed, and then the master died, it should be exactly like the woman. Because now that he's free, nobody could inherit him. So says the Gemara, you're right. Damei Markasha. This is a good question. That which Amimar just said over here, that Oto Eved en lo takana,
that he has no remedy.
He has no remedy. It's a question because it doesn't make sense. You're right. Really, Be'emet, it should be that there is no remedy. Okay?
Sure, Rambam has you have there what Rambam says.
Rav Yaakov Bar Idi says Rav Yaakov Bar Idi. Amar Yeshua ben Levi says Rav Yeshua ben Levi. The halacha is like a bashur, right? Ger shemet, right? So therefore, a ger that dies. Avadav agdolim kanu et atzmam b'nei chorim. So therefore, the older ones they acquire themselves. Avadav aktanim, anybody that grabs them, they grab them. That's halacha, like a bashur. So Amaleh Rabbi Zera Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi says Rabbi Zera to Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi Lametet Amubet 39b beferush shemi halacha or miklal shemi halacha. Did you hear that explicitly, or you're inferring that? So says the Gemara, my klala. What tikduk are you trying to be medaktek from the words of Yeshua ben Levi that you're asking me if I learned it or not? The Amar of Yeshua ben Levi says of Yeshua ben Levi, Amru lifnei Rabbi, they said in front of Rabbi, Amar, imagine the master said, Nityaashti miploni avdi. Right? Imagine right now, they come and they said, it's like a lashon afker. Right? They came and they said, right, and what? Nityashti. Ma kavana nityashti? I became yush. Mahu. What's the halacha? Amar lahem, he comes and he says, Omer ani, en lo takana bishtar. I'm going to say that there's only a takana, only with a shtar shechrur. Because an eved that the master comes and he frees him, he's not allowed to get married to anybody. Not to a batisel, not to a shivcha. Why? Because ki'ilu, there's no kinyan mamon anymore, but there's still kinyan isur. Meaning there's no money, but there's still going to be a kinyan of isur. So therefore, right, what happens? He needs to get shichrur. That's what happens. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, my tamad Rabbi. What is the reasoning of Rabbi? Right? What's the reasoning of Rabbi that he says? Right? How does he learn this? That right now that he doesn't become 100% free. So Gamar lah la misha. So we already said this before. You have a gzera shava la vekatav la sabakitut or chufsha lo mitan lah ma isha bishtar af eved nami bishtar. Just like a woman, right? In order for her to be permitted to get married to somebody else if the husband's alive, she needs a get. Meaning it's either the get or death, but there's nothing in the middle. You need a get, you need a paper, right, which is going to free her. So to the eved nami is the same thing, bishtar. So maybe Rabbi went and learned the eved from the woman that he says keisha, like a woman. What does it mean now? Like a woman. He comes and he says, Ma isha isura velo mamona, avenami isura velo mamona, which means the get, it permits an isur. It does not permit, right, money. Meaning, when a woman gets a get, what does she become? She becomes freed. Freed mitzad what? Mitzad isur.
Anybody in the world.
Right, mitzad isurim, prohibited things. Not mitzad money. It's not like before she was money that was belonging to him and now she's money on her own. It doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with the isur. So to the eved that we're talking about is only isura and not money, which means it's an eved gadol that he has the koach to do whatever he wants, right? And therefore, when the master comes and he frees him, right? So now he only has the isur of the eved, but the money is to himself. So only an eved like this did Rabbi learn it from a woman, that there's no heter other bishtar, but an eved katan that anyway he can't acquire himself. So when you make him efker, there's also isur and also mamon. So therefore, because of that, Rabbi didn't say that there's no takana with shtar. And the reason why is because be'emet, there is a takana. Because since he still has a din mamon that belongs to who? That belongs to the eved, right? That belongs to the master. The eved belongs to, and he's still allowed also to get married to a shivcha. So there's no problem. So v'imi klal amai, so says okay, fine. So if you did learn it from a klal, from a general rule, meaning you didn't learn it explicitly that he said, this is the halacha. So what's halacha then? Elmaleh says, adraba. I wanted to flip the coin. Many times when you learn something, you could flip it around. Meaning, if you say something mefurash, there's nothing to talk about. But sometimes you come and it's, I want to deduce it, or I want to learn it like this. Many times it's dangerous because you want to say A and you could flip it to B. And then what do you do now? Because, you wanted to say A, but I want to say B. Nothing was said explicitly. So now what do you do? So he says, Adraba, the exact opposite. Dok mina le'idach kisa. Mi medaktek, biduk exactly the opposite way. Flip it. Ma isha ben gdola ben ktana, afe benami ben gadol ben katan. A woman who gets a get, does she have to be over bat mitzvah to get a get? She doesn't have to be over bat mitzvah to get a get. Whether she's gadol or katan, right? Or the meaning gdola or ktana, right? It's female, right? Fine, but she gets a get, and she's permitted through the get. So too, the eved also, right? Whether it's gadol or whether it's going to be katan, right? It should be also the same name, dome leisha. So therefore, why are you coming and you're telling me that they both need a heter is only if it's going to be only for Yisud and not for Mammon? Maybe Be'emet's exact opposite. Maybe Be'emet, because I went and I wanted to make the connection between Isura and Mamona. Why don't you just make the connection between Gadol and Katan? Or Gdala Ktana, meaning a minor and an older. Why did you go one route? I could have used the other route, right? So he says, Amarle, so he told him, you're right. I heard it explicitly. And once I heard it explicitly, so then that's it. Okay? But Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rav Chia bar Abba, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, En halacha ka Abashon. We don't say that halacha is going to be like Abashon. Amar le Rabbi Zera le Rav Chia bar Abba, says Rabbi Zera to Rav Chia bar Abba, Beferush shmi alecha, v'miklala shmi alecha. So he says, 1 second, Rav Chia bar Abba comes and he says, in the name of Yochanan, halacha is not like Abashon. So now, right, we come and we say, because beforehand, what do we say? Beforehand, we said Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi in the name of Yeshua ben Levi said, halacha is like Abba Shaul. Now we're saying, Rabbi Chia bar Abba says in Yochanan, halacha is not like Abba Shaul. So comes Rabbi Zera and he tells Rabbi Chia bar Abba, you heard it explicitly or did you hear it from a diuk? So what is the diuk? My klala. Again, we're going to go through the klalim. The Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Rabbi, they said in front of Rabbi, imagine a person says, Nityashti mikroni avdi, I had Yush on this servant. Ma what's halacha? He tells him, Omer ani en lo takana. He's got no takana ela bishtar. Right? Why? Because an eved that the master comes and he frees him is going to be a sur, whether it's in a bat Yisrael or a shivcha. Because since he's only meshuchra to do with money, but he's not meshuchra midin isur, it's going to be a problem. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi, what's the reason in Rabbi? Gamar lala misha. We learn exera shava lala misha, just like in isha is bishtar. So to an Eved Nami is going to be Bishtar, the Kadiyakta Minesa, we're going to make a diuk. What's a diuk? Ke'isha, like a woman. Just like a woman, there's no difference between Gadol and Ktana. So to an Eved, there's no difference between Gadol and Katan. Okay, V'imi Klal Amai. So if you're going to tell me now that we're going from the Klal, so then what? Adra, but the opposite. Dok Mina Lahegisa, go the other way around. Then what? He comes and he says, Ma'isha Isura V'lo Mamona. After the Eved Nami Isura Velo mamona, right? So what is the answer? Elmaleh, you're right. Befirush shmiya li. I heard it. Amar more comes and he says, Amar lahem. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi comes and he says, Amar lahem. Rabbi said to the Talmidim, Omer ani en lo takana labishtar. So I only said that there's no takana ela bishtar. So he says, Vatanya Rabbi says, Omer ani afu noten et dmei atzmo v'yotze minei shuk v'cholo lo. So what are you talking about? I thought that Rabbi said that an eved that the master consecrated and made him Ekdesh, he could get himself out. He pays the Ekdesh the money, and then he goes free. Because it's Ki'ilu that they sold him, meaning that the Gizbar of the Ekdesh sold him to himself. So what's the problem? So you see from here, right, the Rebbe holds that an Eved could redeem himself, right? And therefore he could become permitted to a Bat Yisrael. So what are you telling me now that he doesn't have a Takana Bishtar? What are you talking about? Right? That's not true. He could redeem himself. Answers the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. This is what it means to say. O bekasef, o bishtar. You're right. Or money, or a shtar. Right? What does that mean? When he right now comes, it says in the pasuk, Ve'ofte lo nifdata, o chuvsha lo nitalah. Right? What does that mean? That he wasn't redeemed through money, or he wasn't given, right, a get shichrur. This pasuk, chuvsha. So therefore, when it says over here that you're allowed to come and you're allowed to be redeemed or with money or with a document, v'hai, this eved, that the master came and he was mafkir, right? The eved, pakale kaspe, there's no money anymore. So therefore, there's only an isur of an eved. So this eved cannot come out with money, but there's no money left on him anymore. So the only takana is only bishtar. One more time, an eved has two problems. Number one, he's money, which belongs to somebody else. So he's like subjugated to somebody else. And number two, right, there's an isur. What's an isur? There's an isur for an eved to get married to a bat Israel. The second that he's freed, he becomes a clear-fledged Jew. And then he's permitted to a bat Israel. Okay? So what happens is that right here, he's got two technical problems. The money was already freed because the master freed him. He made him hefker, right? Or he consecrated him, so it's not his anymore. Or he paid himself off. So now, means the money he took care of. But how does he take care of the Yisur part? He needs a get shikrur. He needs this document. And this comes to exclude the Tana you learned in the Braita. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Mishum Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Shimon, name Rabbi Akiva, Yachol ye kesef gomer ba, kederech shtar gomer ba. Do you think that the kesef will come and take out from even the kinyan Yisur just like a get shikrur does? Tamulumar comes to teach you when it says in the pasuk, "V'ish ki yishkav et isha v'ish yivcha necharefet leish ve'oftel lo nitach lo chufsha lo nitan la lo yimetu ki lo chupasha." Right, the second one is chupasha.
Yeah, זה בדברים, לא?
No. There's chupasha. Okay. So there it says, "Orea kol parasha kula lelo chupasha." Right. So he comes and he says the first one was chufsha, the second one is chupasha. It's both chufsha, right? The shim. But he comes and he says the entire parasha is talking about lo chupasha. What does that mean? There's no document, and therefore, but it doesn't say that it wasn't redeemed with money or the document, which means the pasuk is finishing off by saying that this shivcha charufa and boala are not chayavim mitat betin because she wasn't freed with a document, and therefore kiddushim are not tufsin legamre. But if he would have said that it's ptura because lo nifdata, lomar lecha to tell you, shtar gomer ba, then a kesef gomer ba. Everyone understood what happened. What happened is like this: a person comes and he sleeps with a woman. Now, obviously, if she's going to be an eshetish, she gets killed. What happens if she's a shivcha? But she's called a shivcha charufa. Shivcha charufa means she's designated to a man. Okay? Now, designated, right? Designated to a man to get married to. Now, it says over here, but she wasn't redeemed completely. So now this man that slept with this woman, he doesn't get a death penalty. Why? Because she wasn't 100% freed, which means that you see from here that the reason why Be'emet, she doesn't get killed, and the man that had relations with her doesn't get killed, is only because the Kiddushin was not a real Kiddushin. Meaning, you have a Shivcha Kenanit, right? She was half freed, Keilu, and she's designated to a man. So now, if she's going to have the Kiddushin to a man, technically speaking, she should be killed, and the guy that has relations with her should be killed. But it wasn't a complete Kiddushin. Why wasn't it a complete Kiddushin? Because she wasn't 100% redeemed. So since she wasn't 100% redeemed, so for the man that comes and lies down with her, or even herself, they don't get the death penalty. So he says over here, lo malecha, but it teaches over there, why does it say lo nivdata? It doesn't say lo nivdata. It says o chufsha lo nitan la. The chufsha was with a document. Why doesn't it say that she just wasn't redeemed with money? So it comes to teach you that a shtar is what frees her from the shi'abud of melacha or from the yisur of shivcha. But kesef does not do it. Meaning kesef only just takes away the monetary problem, but it doesn't take away the isur problem. So therefore, since it doesn't take away the isur problem, so therefore she's still shivcha kenanit. Okay, so now we're going to actually bring another machloket to do with how do we paskin, like Rabbi or Rabbi Shimon. Amar Rabbi Nachman says Rabbi Nachman halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. But Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama says the name of Yochanan. Halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon. So just like before we had a machloket is halacha like a Bashaul or not. Now we're having machloket is halacha like Rabbi Shimon or not like Rabbi Shimon. So Ashkech Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak le Rav Bar Shilta. So found, right, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak to Rabbi Bar Shita, the Hava Kaya Pitcha de Bet Tefillah, that he was at the entrance of the Bet Knesset. Elmaleh, so he comes and he says, Halacha or en halacha? Is the halacha like Rabbi Shimon? Or the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon? Elmaleh, he says, Ani Omer, I say, the halacha is not like him. But Rabbanan that came from Mechuzah say, in the name of Rabbi Zera, in the name of Nachman, halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. So you see, it's not just that simple. There's a huge machloket over here. Okay? There's a huge machloket over here. Okay? Between Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon. So, v'chiyata lesura, when I came to Surah, shkechata l'rechia baramin, and came to rechia baramin, amri le, and I told him, emalan easy, gufa de uvda echiyaba. Tell me now, what was the case exactly? Amarlo, he says, dahi amata, there was a maidservant, de'ava mara shechiv mira, right? That basically her master became a shechiv mira. Shechiv mira is a person on his deathbed. At yabach yakameh, so she came and she started crying in front of him. Amra le, she told him, until when is she going to become mishubedet? Which means that she basically pleaded, right, that she should be freed. Shakal kumte, right? He took his hat, the shadaba, and he threw it on top of her. Amarla, he said, zil kinihau klinafshich. Acquire the hat and acquire yourself also to become free. Which means he wanted to free her with kinyan chalipin. And therefore, he gave her the hat. And he said that you're going to become free. Okay? So now, all of a sudden, Yerushim come in front of Nachman. Amar lehu, he told them, lo asav klum. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. She's still a slave. She's still a maidservant. So man de chaza, the one that saw the action, savad, he thought, right, that there was no problem with the kinyan. Right? Because he says, no, you could do kinyan chalipin, there's no problem. But the reason why he said there was nothing was because the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. That kesef is not mishachrer legamre to permit her to become a ben chori. So even though you're right, she became now free from work, mitzad money. Meaning mitzad money, she's free. But at the end of the day, lo asakrum, to permit her to get married to anybody else. Yes. But yes. Right? But says the Gemara, velohi, but it's not true. That wasn't an explanation. Ela, but rather, mishum dahavle kelav shel makneh. The kova, the hat, belonged to the makneh, which means the one that's acquiring it to somebody else. That means basically he's the one that's giving it to the shifcha to acquire herself. And the halacha is, right, in Bamitzia, that you have to do chalipin with the kelim of the koneh. And therefore, lo asa klum, to make her free, because there was no kinyan kalacha. Okay, with the kelim of the koneh, not the makneh, which means I'm going to come and I'm going to acquire to you my animal. Chalipin works that I have to take your watch, and by taking your watch, you're taking my animal. I cannot give you my watch, and then by you taking my watch, you take my watch and my animal. It doesn't work like that. The kinyan was done wrong. Okay? The kinyan was done wrong.
Because if you do it with the
he comes and he says not like this. So he says, so therefore he thought that it was actually the mistake was he thought that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. And that's where you can't do anything, because remember that the money cannot take out of ben chorim. But it's not true. It's because that she did the kinyan with the same kelim of the makneh, which is a problem. So Amar Rav Shmuel bar Achitai, Amar Rav Nuna Saba, says Rav Shmuel bar Achitai, name of Rav Nuna Saba, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Ashya, and Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Nuna, says Rav Yitzchak bar Ashya, name of Rav Huna, name of Rav Nuna, halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, but says the Gemara velohi, but it's not true, and halacha Rabbi Shimon. We do not pass it like Rabbi Shimon.
Exactly.
Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rashi, says Rabbi Zera, name of Rabbi Chanina, name of Rashi, Amar Rabbi, in the name of Rabbi, Eved Shenasa Bat Chorim Bifnei Rabbo, Eved Kanani, that he got married to a regular woman in front of his master, Yatzal Lecherut, he goes out free.
It's like the green card.
Right? Amar le Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Kol kach yesh biyadecha, v'ani shonea kotev shtad erusin. He says, what does that mean? You've got such a big chidush in your hands in the name of Rabbi. I taught in the Braita, if you're going to write a shtad erusin, which is basically Ariat Mekudesh li Shivchato, Rabbi Meir says Mekudeshet. Chachamim say it's not Mekudeshet. Why? Because if the person going to be nohed b'avdo keben chorim, there's no proof that he freed him. She's a chazakah, that she's a shivcha, that he kiddushin or not. So it comes out that according to Chachamim, even if the master himself was noheg be'avdo keben chorin, it's not proof that he freed him. Kol sheken if the Eved himself did it, meaning it could be that the Eved himself just got married to this bat chorin, and the master just kept quiet, and then afterwards he didn't give him a big makkah. You understand? No reason he give them a makkah right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You understand? So therefore it's not 100%. Right? So he comes and he says, right? So therefore it's not a proof. And then we'll continue B'ezrat Hashem.